I recently poured dozens upon dozens of hours into replaying Resident Evil 6. Every campaign, every game mode, both solo and cooperatively. All of this with an analytical mind and a discerning eye in order to determine what's good and bad about RE6 with the hopes of providing a comprehensive and detailed breakdown of what a remake of Resident Evil 6 needs to do to be successful. Here's what I have to say about the multiple campaigns, the characters, and the bosses.
Chris? Leon!
Having multiple campaigns is undeniably one of RE6's best features. However, at the same time, it's also one of its greatest weaknesses. With 7 main characters to choose from and 4 different full campaigns that each have unique encounters, creatures and moments, and distinct stories that all intertwine and blend seamlessly to paint the overall narrative, it's undeniable that RE6 is an ambitious and grand undertaking that features a lot of variety, imagination, and excitement that you cannot help, love it or hate it, to respect it. However, unfortunately, what is one of its strongest assets is also one of its biggest weaknesses. Since all the campaigns overlap at several points, you end up having to replay certain sections, often just with a different character. This repetition is not really a bad thing per se, but it can be seen as a downside, since it hurts variety, which is something this game ironically has in spades due to having multiple campaigns. Additionally, tonal whiplash is very much a thing in this game. Going from one campaign to another can feel jarring, like going from one game to another, since thematically and gameplay wise, they are all different. Moreover, while all the campaigns do an admirable job of bleeding into each other, the entire game just feels a bit disjointed because you cannot get the entire story and experience in one continuous go. Honestly though, I do not dislike any of these things. I don't consider them detrimental to the experience, so I truly would not mind getting all 4 campaigns back just as they are, only bigger and better. Now, if they were to address these issues, then I have no idea how they could go about it. Making one big campaign that combines all 4 with you switching perspectives seamlessly several times could work, but this might also be disruptive. Plus, it would rob each campaign of some of their individuality. Whatever they do, all 4 campaigns must make a return in one way or another.
Leon?
Sherry? What are you doing here?
Characters in RE6 need to be improved in 4 ways. First, series veterans, aka Leon, Chris, and Ada, need to interact more with each other. Their long and complicated histories and relationships need to be fleshed out more. We want to see them banter and cooperate more. We would love to learn more about the struggles and the feelings they experience in this game. And it would be awesome if Leon and Chris got to bond even more with their new partners. I think that overall the game does a great job with all of these. It is one of its greatest strengths, but I think that it could stand to do even more and better. Second, newcomers to the series, aka Helena, Pierce, and Jake, and longtime no-see returnee Sherry, need more backstory. Sherry less so because we already know her backstory, and she does go over it in this game in one conversation with Jake. But we know very little of what happened to her between RE2 and RE6. I would like to see this time period in her life explored more. The other three have basically no backstory, since they were introduced in this game. It is still to date their only appearance in the series, and the game does a poor job of giving us any details regarding their life prior to this point. Helena cares a lot about her sister, which is what fuels almost everything she says and does. But the game does not do enough to make us care about her sister as well. A deeper dive into their relationship would make Helena a more sympathetic character, and we would feel more invested in her quest to save and avenge Deborah. Also, it would be nice to see her carrying out Simmons's plan, since the game skips over this. And while she does develop a nice bond with Leon, it would be amazing and better if their friendship is given more development through conversations and interactions that endear them to each other and to us. Pierce is very loyal to the BSAA and Chris, even going out of his way to bring Chris back into action. But why is he so loyal? Why, beyond the obvious, does he admire and respect Chris so much? Why does he do so much for him? I mean, he ends up paying the ultimate price in order to fulfill his mission and save Chris. Where does this dedication and commitment come from? I would love to get some backstory on Pierce that dives into what made him be like this. It would make everything he does and say, including keeping Chris's thirst for revenge in check, make a lot more sense and feel more meaningful. And yes, I know that this backstory exists, but not in RE6, which is where it should be. Also, since we are on the topic of Pierce, I think that it's unfair that of all the new characters and of all the partners, he is the only one that dies. It's true that this adds tragedy and a deep emotional moment to the story, and it shatters plot armor at least once. It's not all smooth sailing for our main characters. They are not all untouchable. However, I do feel kind of bad for Pierce, so I honestly would not mind if they changed his fate in the remake. As for Jake, well, like Pierce, we do know some of his backstory, though a lot of it is not present in-game, which is unfortunate and something the remake should address. Plus, a bunch of questions remain, like how and when he found out that he has special powers and how he reacted to this revelation. The remake should definitely explore his backstory a bit more. I want to learn more about him, which could be done in a future game. Same thing with Helena, since unlike Pierce, they are still alive. But since this is their first game, it makes sense to have this be where they get a lot of their background. Additionally, it would be great to see Jake grapple even more with the fact that Wesker is his father. Also, could we please get some romance between him and Sherry? Third, minor characters should be given more importance. Namely, I am talking about the civilians Leon and Helena save, and the BSAA operatives under Chris's command. All these characters are, for the most part, faceless and or nameless, and they are not really characters. As in, we know basically nothing about them. Their personalities are as basic as it gets, and they provide little to no value to the story other than giving Leon and Helena people to save and grieve over, and giving Chris something to be angry about, and that fuels him to chase down Ada. The thing is that them being such bland, insignificant, and throwaway characters makes it difficult for us to feel invested in or care about whether they live or die and the anguish the main characters go through because of their deaths. So all these minor characters should be given more to do and more to say. They need names and a face. They need to be actual characters, real people we care about, in order for us to feel like we need to help them and terrible when they inevitably meet their demise. The game will be so much better if this is the case. Finn is a great example of what they should go for. Finally, the antagonists could use some work too. Clone Ada / Carla is great. She influences every campaign, she teases and plays mind games with all the protagonists, she does a good job of fooling everyone, us included, into thinking she is the real Ada, and she is the mastermind behind everything. I just think that she deserves a better boss fight. Simmons just needs to be given better motivation. His reason for doing what he did, according to Leon's campaign, is way too cliché and boring. It's pretty much impossible to find him believable as an antagonist when, other than serving up some of the best boss fights in the game, he really does not do very much else of consequence on screen to make us truly buy into the fact that he is evil and responsible for a lot of what happens. He feels too much like a secondary or throwaway bad guy, which yes, might be the point, but he is basically the main antagonist of Leon's campaign, yet he comes across more like a henchman, again outside of his excellent boss fights. Expanding Helena's backstory would be a great way to fix Simmons, since they could show us how he manipulates and coerces Helena into helping him carry out his nefarious plan. They could also have him actually talk to Sherry during her and Jake's campaign, which would showcase him pretending to be the good guy, and confront Leon and Helena verbally a lot more. All these things would turn him into a much better villain, one we can truly hate and that we really want to take down. Now in Ada's campaign, we learn that he loves her, which is a more interesting motivation that should definitely be explored more. Also, the groups he and Carla belong to, Neo, Umbrella, and the family, need to be fleshed out more and made more prevalent / significant.
Him again? Friend of yours? Or like an ex-girlfriend? Guy doesn't know when to quit.
I had honestly forgotten how good boss fights are in this game. Well, most of them. These bosses are some of the best in the series, as are the encounters they provide. Therefore, they should all return. This includes Simmons, Deborah, the Ustanak,
Welcome to the club.
and the giant BOW from the end of Chris's campaign. Which I am sure will all return since they are integral to the plot, and the invisible snake from Chris's campaign, the Berserk from Leon's campaign, the Ogroman from Chris and Jake's campaigns, and the Chainsaw Guy from Jake and Ada's campaigns. Simmons is easily my favorite, since all of his forms, from a big cat to a T-Rex to Jeff Goldblum, are all so cool and inventive, as are the battles he presents in these forms. From a fight on a moving train, to a sequence straight out of Jurassic Park, to forcing him to eat lightning. These fights and transformations all need to return, and they don't even need to do much to them, since they are already pretty awesome. But any good changes are welcomed to give veteran players a refreshing experience. The Ustanak is an awesome monster and he is put to good use overall. The only changes I would suggest for it are A. Include at least one section where he stalks you freely, Mr. X Nemesis style. There is one such section in the game already, but it's a bit gimmicky with these bugs and very scripted. And the second, more boss fights with it that are straight up fights instead of gimmick fights like the one on the helicopter. With the ability to hilariously grab people and put them in a cage on his back, and to change his right hand, there is a lot they can do with him in order to create challenging, tense, inventive, and fun encounters that make it an even more memorable, unstoppable stalker. Deborah is a very fun and dynamic boss fight, especially since 3 characters face her. I would love it if they expand the minecart section, the highlight of the fight. The giant BOW has an awesome design. It's intimidating, creepy, unique, and scary. I love how it chases you throughout the underwater facility. Not only are these sequences amazing and a spectacle, but they are also terrifying and thrilling. The arenas in which you fight it are very cool, tense, and atmospheric. Great stages to fight a horrifying final boss. While the first battle against it is a bit too easy, the second one more than makes up for it. There really are not any changes I would suggest for this boss. The Ogremen are not terribly inventive as far as boss fights go, though the fact that you fight them in an open area with the added challenge of having to disable anti-air guns and with 4 characters does add some flavor to the fight. Still, of all the bosses you fight with more than 2 characters, they are the least impressive ones. The single Ogreman fight with Chris and Pierce is equally unspectacular. It would be cool if in the remake, the Ogreman are greatly improved. And I mean as far as fighting them goes. Design-wise, they are awesome, since they are grotesque, imposing, and intimidating. Everything you want to see in a Resident Evil boss. The Berserk and the Invisible Snake are on the same boat, masterfully designed and offering supremely imaginative encounters, but they are not utilized to their utmost potential. The actual fight with the Berserk is way too short and you kill it with a random explosive barrel that conveniently slides by. Making the fight with it longer and finding a better way to off it would go a long way towards improving it. As for the snake, giving it a bigger playground to stalk you in and having it do so freely in a non-scripted fashion would definitely make it a very terrifying creature to go up against. Just imagine Mr. X, but as a giant snake that you can barely see. We will be on our toes constantly for sure. Chainsaw Guy can honestly stay the same. I love that he stalks Ada and then Jake and Sherry while serving up some nerve-wracking fights, since he will insta-kill you if he catches you, and you always fight him in small arenas. In the end, all 3 characters work together to kill him once and for all, which is very cool. As I alluded to earlier, the helicopter should be removed. Some of the worst, most boring boss fights ever. And I do not count the Lepotica as bosses, though they should definitely return since they are terrifying.
Pilot is mutated into the same kind of monster we saw back at the cathedral.
What?
With so many campaigns, characters, and bosses, there is no denying that RE6 is the biggest game in the franchise. Its massive scope means that there is plenty to love and hate about it. But you gotta respect how grand of an undertaking it was. Please let me know your thoughts on the campaigns, characters, and bosses from RE6 in the comments below. Now on screen you will find links to my full video on Resident Evil 6 and everything its remake needs to do to succeed, and to the same video but for RE5. Please check out these videos as well. I will see you over there. Thank you so very much for watching.